We are Christina,
Oneida,
Alicia,
Colleen.
Welcome to 4NP's podcast.
This is a podcast by 4NPs. 4NPs, advanced practice nurses, students, and anyone interested in the medical arts.
That's the number 4 NPS podcast.
If you have a topic you'd like to see covered, please feel free to email us at 4npspodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us through our social media. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of 4NP's podcast. We're excited this week. We have a student nurse practitioner, and we also have another guest, Jessica, who's going to be on talking about her journey going into it. So she's not yet in school for family nurse practice or adult nurse practitioning, but we're excited to just have them on just to go through, their decision on why they decided to go into being a nurse practitioner, what made them go back to school, what brought them to that decision. And so we're excited. So we have Maureen Brady and we have Jessica Bliss, and we welcome them to our show.
Hi.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
I was just going to say that, this episode is just kind of like the different phases, like starting to kind of start thinking about going back to school. That part might take a while, and then you're in the process of being in school, and then, you've completed. So we have kind of all the phases here, so we're just going to kind of go over that and talk about the process and what our experiences have been.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Exactly. Okay, so Maureen, welcome to the show.
Hi.
We met, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago or so, because I met you in the urgent care where I was working in New York, and you were there as a student being precepted for your adult health practicum hours, right?
Yes.
I met you there, and I just as soon as I saw you, you're just like a great person. You just have like a great aura about you. You're very energetic. You're really enthusiastic. Just always have a smile and always like ready to just kind of go right in there. So I'm so excited that you're on the show today with us.
Thank you.
Just talk a little bit about your history, I guess, when you became an RN, what that looked like, and where you've worked, some of the areas where you've practiced, and what made you go back to school for your master's degree.
Okay. So I became an RN in 1980. Originally, I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a nurse, but my mother was a nurse, and she kind of talked me into it. I wanted to be an interior designer, but she said, that's not good security. You should become a nurse. So, okay. And then, at the age of 18, you really don't know any better. You don't know what your future is. So who better to take advice from than your mother? So I started out, and lo and behold, I liked it. And once I was fully immersed in it, I said, well, I got to finish this thing now. So then I became a nurse in 1980. I worked for a long time at St. Vincent's Hospital in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan in Greenwich Village. It's now closed, unfortunately. And where did I go? After that, I came north to Good Samaritan Hospital in Suffern, New York. I worked there. I worked mostly cardiac surgery. The first couple of years I worked in general medicine, but then I transitioned to cardiac surgery when the HIV virus struck us so hard. It was almost as bad as COVID at the time. So I said, this is wicked hard. So I moved over to cardiac surgery, and I found my niche. I really loved cardiac surgery. So then when they opened up a program in Good Samaritan, I got a position up there and stayed there for about 7 years. And then a lot of the people that started with me started to leave. So I felt it was time to move on, and I went down to Columbia. I stayed at Columbia for a few years as a travel nurse. That was very interesting. Met Dr. Oz.
Oh.
Yeah, and their program is huge. They had 31 beds on their unit. It was just immense. I mean, it was almost overwhelming. I was used to 12 beds at St. Vincent's, 12 beds at Good Sam, and even currently I'm at Montefiore. We have 12 beds, which is manageable. 31 beds is like
Yeah.
Just incredible. So there's so many people on the unit. And I would go home with a little tick because of all the alarms all day long. Sometimes you were like, what is that one? I don't even know that one. But so after Columbia, then my friend who was working at Montefiore, she said, we need people over here. I'm over here. Come on, join me. So I did. And I stayed there for about 7 years. During that time, when I went to Columbia, I worked as a travel nurse, but they weren't accepting any nurses anymore that didn't have their BSN. So I did my BSN online. And then when I went over to Montefiore, they were offering to pay for all your schooling. So I said, well, I should take advantage of this, So I applied to the MP program at Mount St. Vincent's and got accepted and started. And then COVID hit at Montefiore, and it was all hell breaking loose, similar to HIV down at St. Vincent's. And I thought, oh, good Lord, I don't know. So I did it for about 3 months, and I said, you know what, I'm not comfortable. I'm worn out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I essentially did like semi-retirement, and I went per diem. So now I work there once a week, twice a week when they need me.
Nice.
And I am not getting my schooling paid for, but I was so well immersed into this program now that I thought I have to finish, I can't just let it be hanging loose. So yeah, I got my clinicals and I started them, and I'm almost done now. I have, I don't know, maybe 150 more hours to do, but I should be done in May. So
that's great.
I hope. Your lips to God's ears.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Brutal.
There's a light. You'll get through it. You will. Yeah.
Thanks. So that's kind of where I stand. I met Alicia at Urgicare. I really love Urgicare. It's nice treat and release. Mm-hmm. I'm used to that fast pace. I'm used to, give them what they need now and see it work now, as opposed to primary when come back in a week.
That's right.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be okay. I don't feel comfortable. I don't really feel that comfortable with that.
Yeah,
but
right.
I have to do primary care, to get your LABAs and your SABAs and your all those hypertensive meds and diabetic meds.
Oh man,
well ingrained.
Yes.
So
yes.
I mean, I'm looking forward to my new preceptor after this one too. So I've been really lucky. The one that I have now is fabulous. She's a DMP graduate of Rutgers, very smart, very laid back, very cool, but lets you be independent, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
If you're nervous, you just come back to the area where you're sitting and you say, well, this is what I think it is. This is what I think we need to treat it with. And what do you think? And you're on it. So chart, she says, order the stuff. Or, well, let's sit down and revisit that.
Yeah.
But most of the time, she's great. She gives you a lot of autonomy. So I like that.
Yes. And I know the DNP that you're talking about. And when I saw her working with you and how she was just, like you said, that independence, I was like, wow, I wish I had had a preceptor like that, because I had one initially that let me go ahead and go in and be on my own for the most part. But after that, I really couldn't touch the patients. They did not want me really going in the room by myself. Like they watched everything. It was very difficult. Like I wasn't charting anything. Like I see you charting. I see you saying like, these are my recommendations. I think that's such a good experience for you, Maureen. Honestly,
it was the best. It really was the best.
Yeah,
it is the best. Because when I started, I started with somebody different, much younger person, and again, didn't let me do anything. I was just following around like a toddler, and it wasn't helpful. I didn't learn anything. I'm kind of a visual, hands-on learner, so I need that in order to incorporate it all into my brain and then, transfer it to my practice. So since it's changed, it's been fabulous.
I think that has to do with the confidence level of the preceptor. I think about that a lot. What makes, any nurse practitioner could be a preceptor to a student, but they don't go under any training to how to teach. Like people don't automatically know that. And if you are a newer nurse practitioner or just a nurse practitioner who's maybe not very confident in your own capabilities, then that can be challenging. For me, I had a couple of physician preceptors, and it was interesting working for them because I was definitely much more hands off. But I do notice that when medical students, physician students go in, they follow the doctors. The doctors aren't letting them touch the patients. Those medical students coming from that I've seen, and maybe Christina, I'm sure it's different at Westchester Medical, maybe because they're in a different scenario, or maybe they're residents at that point. But I know
they're residents.
When I would see them rotate through, I worked for an ENT practice for many years. The students never did a thing. They would always stand there. So I always chalked it up like, well, maybe this is what these physicians are used to. They don't expect me to do anything except for sit there and listen.
Right.
I find in the hospital there's a lot more hands-on, maybe than in the office practice.
That makes sense.
Yeah, not so much the students, the med students per se, but certainly the first year interns, second year interns, and the residents and fellows. They expect them to take over and do all the work. Yeah.
It's interesting, but that makes such a big difference. I was lucky to I had 2 preceptors who were gave me a lot of autonomy. Not enough rope to hang myself, but enough rope to run and get that experience that I needed, that I desperately needed. I wish I had more.
We all needed that.
Yeah.
I think there are people who are teachers and people who aren't. So
Completely agree.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a question that, there's such a shortage of preceptors, but I think it's important to ask that question, are you going to be able to teach me? Am I going to be able to have hands-on? Because that's what I need to be able to go forward and feel, confident in my practice. But there's so many, there's people who will do it and they really don't know how to show you or teach you, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree.
So where I'm at in primary care, we have 2 other providers, and one of them always has a medical student, or he actually precepts nurse practitioners, and they have a computer. They always get access to Cerna. They have a login, and he always lets them, they chart, they do everything, and then he goes in and then modifies the note. So when I went to him, because I'm precepting a nurse practitioner student, which I didn't want to do because I'm new myself, but she was a patient of mine, or she came to see me, and she asked me, and I was like, okay, but I'm still learning, but you're more than welcome to join me. So I think too, it has to do a lot with the level of confidence that the student has too, because I've talked to her and she's got a computer. She goes in with me and she's awesome. She's really like proactive and looking and kind of identifying, okay, this is what I think, and she always gives me tips and her advice and her recommendations. I've told her, go ahead, let's go in the room. So I think there's also like a level of confidence on the student's part, the provider's part too. Time constraints, time management, that's really tough too.
Oh, it is.
What your day's like, if so all those come into play, and I think you have to kind of identify the best scenario and situation. The doctor who is always letting the students do their thing, he's always behind. I love him to death. He's great. But to him, it's like, who cares? I'm behind anyway, so.
So it sounds like he likes teaching. It sounds like he likes to teach.
Yes, he absolutely likes teaching. And he likes to, I think he also likes the other part where they can help him out too, Yeah.
Right.
That's great. That's a nice mix, actually.
Yeah,
you kind of have to be you have to be proactive also. It's your clinical experience. It's not theirs. Obviously they're there, but you have to kind of be willing to kind of jump in and do the things because, it's important.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, but it's also, even when you're proactive, it's like, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? If that preceptor does not want you to do it, or they don't trust you, or they just feel overwhelmed themselves and they just no, then it's really, it's going to be really hard to kind of, fight against that. Yeah. But Maureen, I wanted to ask you, so you mentioned you started with one preceptor and then, and I had noticed that you were with someone else, and actually she's a PA.
Yeah.
But at what point did you, how did that happen where you switched to the NP?
So I was, first of all, noticing that I wasn't able to do anything. And I'm a doer. Like, please put me to work. I don't want to sit around.
Right.
And my school pretty much made the decision. They were a little persnickety about me having a PA over an NP or a physician. And, I had to get co-signatures and all this other stuff. And finally, I got to talking to the current MP that I have. And she was like, well, if I can help you out in any way. I said, oh, well, that's great. So then I started doing, a day with one and a day with the other. And I was noticing the huge difference. And finally, I kind of blamed it on the school, but then I just went off with the MP.
It's great.
Good for you.
And I said, the school's making a big stink about me following a PA as opposed to an MP. It worked out just fine. But we're still friendly and everything.
That's
but
great.
I really am glad that I was able to transfer over.
Right. Yeah. That's good.
It was a difference, and I noticed a difference in care. I noticed nurses are far more compassionate and seem to have a little bit more understanding, spend a few more minutes. Maybe that's just an observation, because my daughter's a PA student and she's saying those things about NP students. So we're doing this little comparison kind of thing as we go. So anyway, it's interesting.
So Maureen, what did you say she's saying about NPs?
She's saying that we're we stereotype our patients and we're a little abrupt. And granted, she's down south too. She's not anywhere near here. I don't know what that infers, but I'm not saying anything bad about anybody.
No. There is a difference though. The training
She says
is different.
the ER nurses are rough. That's what she says. I said, well, that's known.
Oh yeah,
Everyone knows that.
It's part of the scope for them,
You have to be, right?
It's genetic.
It's part of your persona.
They're also on those front lines.
You gotta kind of be.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
But
Yeah.
they're great and they get their job done.
Absolutely.
And so I said, look, you're still a student and keep that observation close to the vest, I said, because as you go down the road, you're going to want them to help you.
Yeah.
So,
good.
yeah, she's good.
So Jessica and I have worked together, and Alicia, we started to get together. Alicia, do you remember Jessica? I don't remember Jessica like when we first started at Northern
Yes,
Westchester.
I do remember.
Because I think you were Knights, right, Jess?
I was nice,
I don't
think,
remember.
when you guys started.
You
Yeah.
looked familiar to me too, so then I would know you too. What floor were you on?
7.
Telemetry.
You were on, okay. So we must have crossed paths for sure.
But I did float around also. Like when I had first started at that hospital, I was one of the PCAs. And then I went to LPN, and then I went to RN. So when I was a PCA and an LPN, I kind of floated around a little bit. But then once I switched over to the RN, then I landed myself on telemetry, and I stayed there.
That's great. So you see the whole realm. You started with the PCA, and then you went to LPN, and then the RN, and like that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jess. I didn't know that.
And then before then, I had done the ambulance before.
Wow.
And then that's what got me interested in nursing to begin with anyway.
So what's your background? You started as an RN in cardiopulmonary? And then...
Yeah. So I started just because like when I was a PCA and, I kind of floated around and I wanted to know, basically I wanted to float because I wanted to know where I wanted to end up. And every time I floated to the telemetry floor, I just loved it. It was like the cardiac rhythms. I wanted to learn. It just, for some reason, there was like a jive there, and then that's what sort of my passion became was cardiac. I just loved it. Mm-hmm. And then, so I worked telemetry like as a staff nurse for quite a few years. And then, our boss was leaving, our manager was leaving telemetry and staying with the hospital, but going on to, different role. And she had approached me and said, why don't you try management? And I was like, me?
Wow.
Are you sure? So, and at that point, I was just getting so not tired of being a staff nurse, but it was like I was getting hungry for something else. Mm-hmm. Like I needed to go somewhere. I needed to do something else. So I said, well, it's either going to be, and I'd always toyed in my mind that I wanted to go to ICU. So I was kind of like, well, it's either ICU or now it's management. So that was like a total crossroads for me. And I think had it, like looking back at it now, I think had it been anyone other than that particular manager, I probably just would have stayed in my own path and continued on maybe to ICU and done kind of like my own path. But I think I regarded her so highly that I thought, well, if she approached me and thought that I would be good for management, then maybe that's a side of me I just don't know yet. You know, like I haven't met that Jess yet. So I did that for about a year and a half. It was a little bit of a rough onboarding because I really didn't feel like, I felt like I would have had a great mentorship with our current manager that was stepping off at the time. But then they kind of pulled her out of it. So I really didn't get a good feel. First of all, it was hard enough to go from like managing the same staff I was just working with.
Yeah, it's
hard. Side by side.
A tough transition.
Yeah,
and then you're stepping into a brand new role that you have absolutely no idea how to do. And it was kind of like, well, I really needed that person to be there for me for those decisions and, you know, to learn that stuff. So I think that the rough onboarding kind of set the stone for me. I didn't feel successful. I didn't feel like I had a lot of support. And when I kind of stood up and asked for more support because I just felt like I was getting swallowed up and I didn't feel like I was like addressing my own passion and hunger for this, you know, like now I felt like I was just in some job, you know, and I really wasn't serving any purpose of what I initially went into it for, which was to hopefully make good changes and, you know, maybe turn it into like more of a progressive care unit, like the initial manager had wanted to do it. Like I had big dreams for it. And then I think as time went on, I just got so frustrated. You know, it was that typical middle of the road person that you felt like, you know, you couldn't make the staff happy because you were managing them and you couldn't make the upper administration happy because they just needed to get stuff done. So I felt lost, you know, and I really felt like that stripped kind of my passion for nursing for a while. It really was upsetting to me. So, you know, for a while I became really bitter, you know, and I became really bitter about just nursing in general. And I went to a totally different department. I went to outpatient and it was healthy for me. It was healthy for me because it let me step out of that zone and say, you know what, forget about all the bitterness. It wasn't a loss. I learned so much about myself. I was also going through a rough period, you know, personally at that time. So I had so many things coming at me from so many different angles. But going to the outpatient side, it taught me so much about myself. And I was able to kind of reflect on that time. And I've been outpatient for, I want to say, I went to endo for like 4 years, maybe?
Yeah, like what? 2016?
Yeah.
Or end of 2015, maybe?
I think it was 2014.
No, I didn't go to endo till 2015.
Yeah, and you definitely went before I did.
Am I right?
We started school in 2014.
Yeah, and so I didn't start endo till 2015.
Don't challenge Oneida.
I realize that Oneida is the timekeeper here, but I'm going to officially disagree with you.
You're wrong.
It was March 2015.
Christina, never challenge Oneida when it comes to dates and times. She is definitely the timekeeper.
I have to say, I miss the challenges between you two, Oneida and Christina. So much fun those challenges were.
Yes, those were good times. Those were good times. That was fun. That was really fun when we were all there.
Yeah.
It was a good team.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you did endo, and then where did you go?
So I did endo, and then I stayed there for like 4.5 years, and I was like, you know what? I really should have tried ICU at that point. And so I said, finally, I got up enough courage. I went to ICU. Really loved what I was learning, and I said, gosh, you know, I'm really kicking myself. I should have done this a long time ago. Wow. I'm kind of getting like really a good passion back, and I'm just so excited. You know, I'm super excited. And then COVID hit as I came off of orientation. Good. And that was like a whammer of a situation. But I still felt strong. I felt strong, like I could do this. You know, I was precepting people I wasn't even really confident in things that I was doing or decisions I was making, but I was precepting, which in a way kind of helped me get that much stronger, you know, and then it just, I don't know. I loved ICU. I really, really did. And I think that is sort of what's helping me a little bit going back to school, because I just like getting that hunger back and that passion. I think it's time for me to to keep going with that passion, you know, to keep wanting to do more. So I don't know exactly what area I want to go into. And I think that's why I haven't committed, because I don't want to commit and just say, oh yeah, I'll just start, you know, school. I'll take some classes. I don't want to do that. You know, I want to really have that passion. I really want to start it and be excited about it, because that's when I do my best. So I think, you know, Oneida, a couple of things that you were saying about time management is an issue and all these different types of preceptors. And Maureen, you were saying the difference between the two. I mean, obviously we went through all that when we had all gone to nursing school, but you know, an NP is a completely different story. And these are all things I think that you kind of just opened up my eyes to when I was listening to this, that I need to get like much more information from like you guys, you know, what is it that your day looks like? You know, what makes you happy about the type of department that you're in, or you know, the type of NP that you're doing, you know, like what makes you excited about it? What's the biggest challenge? You know, I need to hear more of that, because I think that will help me kind of steer myself in the way of what exactly I want to do. I know I want to do it. It's just, listen, for a single mom with not a whole lot of time on my hands, you know, I need to make sure I do this and I do it right.
Right.
Because it's not only for me, it's for him too. You know, you have big goals in your life and you want to show them you can accomplish anything. And listen, I aced it through nursing school and I want to ace it through MP, but the timing has to be right.
Yeah.
You know?
I have a question for you, Jessica. So you really like ICU. I love cardiac surgery, ICU. Looking back now, I chose the school because it was close to home. I really kind of wish I chose ICU MP. And that's a whole different ball game, but it's not offered at the school I go to. Like you would have to go to Manhattan or something like that. I know NYU has it, but I think that's part of the decision too, what type of MP you want to be.
Right.
You know, and then there's psych MPs and, you know, there's so many varied positions that you could take, and what you need as a degree in order to have that position.
Correct.
Is critical.
And it matters, you know, like what school you're going to go to because of exactly the type of MP that you want to be. Like, I need to put in a lot more research, I think, to it. But I think talking to more people, like, you know, like all of you, will also help me get more information too.
And listening to our podcast.
Yes.
I love this podcast. I'm going to learn so much.
Well, that you just gave us some ideas of some directions to go. You know, these are the things that we want to look into for people who are listening to us, because you're one of the categories of people that we're kind of trying to aim this towards, and hopefully we can be of assistance with that. So
thank you.
Thanks for that.
Thank you so much.
And Jessica, no, thank you for being open about, you know, where you are right now. I finished in December. So at this point, we're not even talking, it's like 9 months ago. And I passed my boards in June, and then I moved to Colorado. So I'm not practicing as a nurse practitioner yet. And honestly, I'm still trying to discover what I'm going to be doing with this, because I still don't know. I mean, you have time, you know, not even, you know, having applied. I don't know if you've applied to a program yet, but you have a lot of time to really think about it and, you know, to go through the clinicals and really like kind of do some soul searching while you're in there and see where you find, you know, your groove. But even with that being said, even starting somewhere, I mean, and a few of you have done the same. I mean, and even as a nurse, you start one place and then you're like, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. And you move on. It's the same once you get your master's, you know, as a nurse practitioner, there's so many options. And I think, Colleen, I know you hit on this a lot too. At the end of the day, you have that master's degree, you have that advanced level degree as a nurse that can do so much more than, you know, we can really imagine. Even, you know, you think you have to do a certain road or a certain path because that's what other nurse practitioners are doing, but it's really, there's such a huge scope that it really, that's part of why we do this podcast as well, to explore what that scope is, coming from so many different areas of specialties, that things that nurses are doing that are phenomenal, that we're like, what? You could do that, with your master's degree. Yeah. So, I mean, I think with that being said, once you're ready to make the choice, I don't think you'll have any regrets. It will be tough, really, really hard sometimes, and you'll wonder why you did it. And
true that,
and you do suffer the burnout sometimes, but I think there are absolutely no regrets whatsoever.
There are definitely no regrets.
Yeah. So yeah, take heart. You don't have to have all the answers right this second.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine myself having any regrets. I think I'll be like nothing but proud, but I don't know what I should do as far as like picking which school, because I just don't know. Like, I love the geriatric population. I would take them all home with me if I could. I love them. Like, that's another passion. They're so sweet, and they have so much life left to talk about, and so many things, and we want to try and make them better and do right by them and make sure that they have all their resources, and that's a huge thing for me. So would that be something that I want to go into? But it's all going to matter the school that I pick from, I think. So that's what makes me a little intimidated.
I think if I had gone back, I probably would have chosen a school, just to let you know, that helped with preceptors, like choosing the preceptors. I would have gone back and chosen a school that provided preceptors and helped you with that more than what we got.
I don't know if there's many of them. I
know there's one, and I would have done it. I'm not going to say which one, but I know one.
You should say which one it is. That's important.
I think I know which one.
I want to say it was Pace, but I can't.
It is.
Or Merit. It is Pace, right?
It's Pace, yeah.
And you're a graduate of Pace, so dude, I would just do that.
Is that new? Because I have a friend who went to Pace, and she was finding her own preceptors, but that she would have graduated.
For NP?
For NP, yep. She would have graduated about maybe 5 years ago. So maybe they changed that.
I have a number of friends who went, and a couple of them had to find preceptors during COVID, but otherwise Pace placed them.
Wow. That's nice.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would have done that.
Yeah.
I think another good question to maybe for potential NP students coming in is because of COVID, is there going to be even more of an issue with preceptors and things like that, and opportunities where you can learn in your clinicals? Like, how altered is that now going to be because of COVID? Are there more restrictions? Are there?
It seems to be coming back to normal.
Yeah, I would say no.
At least at my school, I'm going to class again. So
okay,
yeah. That's a nice thing. But there are, like, I work with a lot of academic medical centers around the country, and I will tell you that some of them still have restrictions. Even as a pharma rep, I can't even get in the door. And I'm pretty sure they're not having their students come in there either. They're telling me their campuses are closed. So it's,
But also because of COVID, that a lot of nurses who probably may have precepted have retired, just because I mean, in the ICU, like a few nurses that we work with, they retired because, it was devastating. So if you can retire,
Right.
So.
Yeah, and some of them are leaving now for all sorts of other reasons too. There's all sorts of turmoil right now.
Yep.
Right.
So, Jess, I will say that as far as like narrowing down what kind of NP or specialty you want to be, the main differences are going to be your acute care, right? That's ICU.
Right.
That definitely requires separate schooling.
Yeah.
But the family health or adult health, that's pretty much in the same realm. And then aside from that, then there's the psych NP. So psych NP, if you at all want to deal with any, psychological, mental health issues and truly focus on that, because as a family nurse practitioner, you do prescribe and focus on that, but you're not labeled as a psych NP for like psychiatry, right? Basically.
Right.
So identifying if that's something, if not, if those two are excluded, which I know you're kind of teetering in an acute care realm, then you can really identify, okay, then let me go forward with family health or adult health, depending on if you don't want to deal with the kids. But as far as geriatric, I mean, that I think is just a specialty, the boards that are specialized for geriatrics,
Right.
you know, but be aware that when you want to if you want to take care of geriatrics, that encompasses all their comorbidities. So that's basically like primary care.
Right.
So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's true.
And be careful because one pays better than the other.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I would go with your passion.
Absolutely.
They're making changes too now. I think they're making changes they're merging CRNA into NP. So you have to have an NP as well as become a CRNA, or somehow you get the degree at the same time.
Wow.
And they're phasing out. I also heard they're phasing out adult NP.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
I don't know how accurate that is or how true, but I was told that by an NP yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's the geriatric now. It's not adult, it's geriatric.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong, but that's what I think.
And the other thing to consider is that if you wanted to specialize, can you, if you wanted to change, like say you decided to be an ICU NP, and now you decide you want to go into family health,
Right.
does that require you to get an additional education, an
Right.
extra certification, or can you transfer that over? So if I'm an FNP, I can kind of go into a more broad spectrum of positions, like your RN. When you're an RN, there's so many opportunities out there, so many opportunities if you're an FNP, which is definitely why I chose that. I didn't want anything to do with kids at all. I have 3 of my own and I love them, but I am not interested in children at all.
Right.
But I went to Mount St. Mary, which is very close to my school. I did my undergraduate there. I don't know if we're not supposed to say that or not, but I think we do. People figure it out anyway. I did it for a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, it was easy. Second of all, I got a discount because I graduated from there, so I got some percentage off my bill.
That helps.
It was a lot. It was good.
That always helps.
Yeah, and I chose the FNP because I did, like you, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was in research at that time, and Northwell had come in and taken over a program that I had built for ENT and allergy, which was a private physician-owned clinical practice. And when Northwell came in, I think, Maureen, you mentioned this before, Northwell came in and they said, well, we'll pay for your education. And I went, I'm not really happy here at Northwell. My job is changing a lot, and I don't know where this is going to end for me. Something that I've enjoyed for many years is really kind of changing up. And I said to my husband, I was like, I think I'm going to go back to school because Northwell's going to pay for it.
Right.
And I don't know where this road is leading me, and let them pay. And if I have a master's in nursing, I can go anywhere in research.
Right.
I mean, that's like, it's golden. It's a golden ticket.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so it'll only boost my career if I decide to change down the road. And then if really doesn't work out and I decide I don't want to go into research, I can be an NP. I'll be trained to be an NP. I was like, so I'll try it. So Northwell did pay for a while. And then I negotiated a severance package with them, which was the biggest blessing of my life. And then I decided to just try to be an NP for a while. I was having trouble getting a job. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, here I am. And now it has been advantageous to me to have this for research.
Right.
And I can still do now per diem stuff to keep my license active.
Yeah, I think, looking at the bigger picture, like what ultimately do you want to get out of it, and what flexibility are you looking for? And what's the purpose of all of it?
Yeah.
I don't want to be tied to what I'm doing right now.
Right.
I can only last doing this so long.
Right.
I want more flexibility. I want more doors open. I'm done, I think, with this chapter. So, now I just need to set the stage right, and kind of go from there. But I think information gathering is like huge for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just key.
And that's a great way to look at it because it is opening doors. It's about the opportunity to do things. And we're all learning here from doing this podcast that there are infinite honestly, no joke, infinite
Right.
possibilities. There are so many things that you can do with this.
It's kind of
it's
mind
paying
blowing.
off.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, how lucky are we that we all get to say that, that we have these opportunities at our fingertips. I mean,
Right.
Not many people these days can say that they have that, but then also the passion for it,
Right.
We're very lucky, and, I'm thankful for that. And I just, I want to be
Me
able
too.
to set the stage right,
I think
Yeah.
you need to tell us what some of those possibilities are. List them out so that people
You're going to have to listen to our podcast, Maureen.
evidently.
We're working at it. We're laying out the path.
Okay.
On our next episode.
On our next episode, we're just gonna list. We're just gonna list possibilities.
That's right.
Well, one of the things that I've decided to do, I don't know if it's going to come to fruition, but I have my certification to shoot Botox. So I'm thinking, why not make a little extra cash on the
Yeah.
side,
A lot of people do that.
I know.
do that.
I know.
Yes.
I hope I can find a new, somebody that'll take me on and let me do it.
Well, we have somebody coming on the podcast.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, next week.
In a couple weeks.
Next Sunday.
And you probably
yeah?
know her. You know her. Oh, next Sunday. Wow.
Our teacher?
yeah.
The teacher at the
Yep.
school?
Yes.
Oh, she's phenomenal.
Elaine
Yes.
scenario, yeah.
We're
Yeah,
very
she's
excited.
great.
So.
Yeah.
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 I didn't get my certification from her, but I know somebody who did, and that might be the person that I'll join to do it. So we'll see.
That's
Well,
fantastic.
maybe you and I can talk after this because I'm going to be doing that myself.
No, wait.
Yes.
I'm doing that.
Yes.
I'm doing that.
Oh,
Wait, we're all doing that.
I hope we all can.
yeah.
We just want one thing.
It's about time the nurses made some money at things,
Right.
you know?
Exactly.
It's our turn.
Infinite possibilities.
That's right.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to us and give us 5 stars.
If you have any ideas or comments, please message us at 4npspodcast@gmail.com.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 4NPs Podcast. That's the number 4NPS Podcast. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast and go to our website at 4npspodcast.com for episode transcripts, resources, and more information about us. Please stay tuned for part 2 of our 2-part interview.
The information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be used in substitute for professional care by a medical provider. The information in this podcast does not represent medical or other professional advice or services. The thoughts and opinions presented on the 4NPs podcast are of the hosts and guests and do not represent those of their employers.